Buckle up, because this one is wild. I never imagined that the woman I built my life with would one day look me in the eyes and say, "I just need freedom." But that's exactly what happened. And let me tell you, I gave her all the freedom she could handle, more than she ever bargained for. Emily and I had been together for 12 years, married for 10. She was my best friend, my partner, the person I trusted more than anyone. We had built a comfortable life together, a nice home, good jobs, vacations twice a year, and what I thought was a solid foundation. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but nothing that made me question her loyalty. That changed one night when she came home from a girls' weekend acting different. Distant, she wasn't affectionate, barely looked at me, and every question I asked was met with short, clipped responses. I knew something was off, but I didn't push. I figured she was just exhausted from the trip. A week later, she dropped the bomb. "I don't know if I want to be married anymore," she said, avoiding eye contact. "I feel trapped. I need space. I need to figure out who I am without all these expectations." I sat there, stunned, trapped. What expectations? I'd never controlled. Her never limited her in any way. She had a good job, her own social life, freedom to do what she wanted. I supported her in everything. So where was this coming from? First, I thought maybe it was a phase, some kind of midlife crisis hitting early. I suggested counseling, a temporary separation, anything to help us work through whatever she was feeling. But Emily wasn't interested in fixing things. She had already made up her mind. "I just need time," she insisted. Time, that's what she wanted, and like a fool, I gave it to her. The weeks that followed were some of the hardest of my life. Emily moved out temporarily into a small apartment across town. At first, she kept in touch, checking in, even asking how I was doing. But then the calls became less frequent, the texts became shorter, and then one day I saw her. I had gone out with a couple of friends to a bar, just trying to get my mind off things. That's when I spotted her, sitting in a booth near the back. She wasn't alone. A man I didn't recognize had his arm draped around her shoulders, whispering something in her ear. She was laughing, not just any laugh, the kind of laugh she used to have with me when we first started dating, carefree, happy. And that's when I knew this wasn't about space. This wasn't about finding herself. She had already moved on. Clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay in my seat. My friend, who had seen it too, gave me a look as if to say, "Do you want to go over there?" But I shook my head, no. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to be that guy. Instead, I watched. I observed, and every second of it burned into my mind. The way she leaned into him, the way his hand rested on her thigh like it had every right to be there, the way she never once looked around, never once considered that I might be anywhere. Nearby, watching my wife, well, soon-to-be ex-wife, act like I never existed. I left that bar with a pit in my stomach, but something inside me shifted that night. If she wanted freedom, I was going to give it to her. I was done playing the heartbroken husband, and I was about to make her realize exactly what she had thrown away. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was devastated. No, that part was already behind me. I'd spent enough nights tossing and turning, trying to figure out where things went wrong. But after seeing Emily with that guy, something inside me flipped. It was like watching a glass shatter in slow motion, except this time, I wasn't the one scrambling to pick up the pieces. I just stood back and let it fall. And the next morning, I made my decision. It was time to move forward. First things first, I needed to finalize the divorce. I wasn't about to let Emily keep me in limbo while she figured things out between drinks and stolen glances with another man. No more waiting. I called my lawyer, who had been sitting on the paperwork for weeks. "File today," I said. "I want this over as soon as possible." He was surprised by the urgency but didn't question it. I wasn't in the mood to explain. Then I did something I never thought I'd do. I started cleaning out the house. Not in a sad, nostalgic way, but with purpose. Every trace of Emily was packed up, every little thing she left behind tossed into boxes. I wasn't keeping anything. That reminded me of her, not the pictures, not the gifts, not even the stupid coffee mug she always used. It all went into storage. And just like that, the house started to feel different, lighter. Like I had exhaled a breath I didn't even know I'd been holding for years. But I wasn't stopping there. I had spent too long trying to fix a marriage that was already broken, too. Much energy trying to be the perfect husband for a woman who didn't appreciate it. It was time to focus on myself. I signed up for a gym membership that same afternoon. I threw out half my wardrobe and bought new clothes, ones that actually fit, ones that made me feel like I hadn't given up on myself. It wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about making Emily regret her choices. It was about me. I started going out more. Not to bars, not to drown myself in meaningless flings, but just out, meeting new people, reconnecting with old friends, doing things I had forgotten I enjoyed because I had spent too much time being a husband instead of a person. And that's when things got interesting. It was about 2 months after Emily left when I ran into someone unexpected. It happened at a charity event, a fundraiser for a local animal shelter. A friend had invited me, and honestly I had no intention of going, but at the last minute, I decided to show up. I was standing near the drinks table, making small talk with an older couple, when I heard a voice behind me. Well, I never thought I'd see you here." She was an old college friend, someone I hadn't seen in years. We'd always been close, but life had pulled us in different directions. She looked different now, more mature, more confident, but that same spark was still there. What can I say? I smirked. I'm full of surprises these days. We started talking, and before I knew it, hours had passed. It was effortless, natural, something I hadn't felt in a long time. And for the first time since my marriage ended, I felt something other than anger, disappointment, or resentment. I felt alive. But while I was moving forward, Emily was about to realize just how much she had lost. Because the moment she saw me with Sophie, everything changed. It's funny how people don't appreciate what they have until it's gone, Emily thought. She had all the time in the world, that she could walk away from our life together and come back if she wanted to. Maybe she assumed I'd always be waiting, stuck in some miserable limbo while she lived out her so-called freedom. But life doesn't work that way, and the moment she saw me with Sophie, I knew she had finally realized what she had lost. It happened. On a Saturday evening, I had taken Sophie out to a new rooftop restaurant downtown. It was one of those trendy places where you needed reservations weeks in advance, the kind of spot Emily used to love. The night was perfect, the skyline glowing in the distance. The air just crisp enough to make you appreciate a good drink in hand. Sophie and I were deep in conversation, laughing, exchanging stories, when I noticed a shift in the atmosphere, a familiar presence. At first I thought I was imagining it, but then I saw her, Emily, sitting just a few tables away, staring at me like she had just seen a ghost. She wasn't alone. She was with a man, tall, well-dressed, probably one of the many flings she had cycled through since leaving. But her focus wasn't on him, it was on me. Our eyes locked for just a second, and in that moment, I saw everything. Shock, regret, the sudden, horrifying realization that I wasn't the same man she had left behind, that I wasn't broken, waiting for her to change her mind, that I had moved on, and that I was happy. She didn't expect that. I turned back to Sophie, deliberately ignoring the weight of Emily's stare. If she wanted to watch, let her. She had made her choices, and so had I. The night continued. But Emily's presence lingered. I could feel it. The way she kept sneaking. Glances, the way her laughter with her dates sounded forced, unnatural. I knew her too well. She was faking it. Then, as Sophie excused herself to the restroom, Emily made her move. She got up, casually approaching my table as if we were old friends bumping into each other. "Hey," she said, feigning surprise. "Wow, I didn't expect to see you here." I leaned back in my chair, taking a sip of my drink, unfazed. It's small world. I replied. She hesitated, her eyes flickering towards Sophie's empty seat. "Who's your friend?" I smiled. "Someone who actually appreciates me." That stung. I saw it in the way her expression faltered, in the way she clenched her jaw ever so. Slightly. But she recovered quickly. "You look different," she said, her voice softer now, almost hesitant. "I feel different," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Turns out losing dead weight does wonders for a person." She flinched just a little, but I caught it. Before she could respond, Sophie returned, smiling as she slid back into her seat. She noticed Emily, but didn't say anything, just looked at me with an unspoken question in her eyes. I kept my attention on Sophie, making it clear that whatever conversation Emily had been hoping for wasn't happening. Emily hesitated, as if debating whether to say something else, but she must have realized she had already lost this battle. "Well, it was good seeing you," she muttered, but we both knew she didn't mean it. She walked away, rejoining her date, but her posture had changed. She looked smaller somehow, less confident. I watched as she sat down, distracted, barely engaging. With the man in front of her, because she wasn't thinking about him, she was thinking about me. And for the first time since she left, I felt absolutely nothing for her. That was the moment I knew I was free. I didn't think about Emily much after that night. Seeing her again, watching the realization dawn on her face, it was all the closure I needed. I'd spent months agonizing over what went wrong, replaying our last conversations in my head, wondering if I could have done something different. But in that moment, it became clear. Nothing I did would have changed the outcome. She had been so sure of herself, so certain that she was making the right choice, that she was walking into something better. But the thing about chasing a fantasy is that sooner or later reality catches up, life moved on. Sophie and I kept seeing each other and things felt easy. No mind games, no second-guessing myself, no feeling like I had to walk on eggshells to keep her interested. We weren't rushing into anything serious, but it was refreshing to be around someone who actually valued me instead of looking for an escape route. Then, out of nowhere, Emily reached out. It was a sad afternoon when I saw her name pop up on my phone. At first, I thought it was a mistake that she had texted me by accident. But no, her message was deliberate. "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen, debating whether to ignore it. Every instinct told me not to engage, but curiosity got the better of me. I responded with a simple, "What do you need?" She took a few minutes to reply. I think I made a mistake. Can we meet?" There it was, the moment I had been expecting. I didn't feel joy, I didn't feel anger, just a strange, detached satisfaction. Right. I agreed to meet at a neutral spot, a quiet coffee shop on the other side of town. No way was I letting her step back into my home like she still had a place in my life. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting at a corner table, looking nothing like the woman who had walked out on me. She had always carried herself with a certain arrogance, like she knew she could have anything she wanted. But now she looked smaller, not physically, but emotionally. Like someone who had spent months pretending they were okay, only to realize they weren't. She smiled weakly when she saw me. "Hey." I sat down waiting. She fidgeted with her coffee cup, avoiding eye contact. "I don't really know how to say this," she started, her voice softer than I remembered. "I thought I was doing the right thing. I really did. But everything I thought I wanted, it wasn't real." I leaned back, crossing my arms. "You seemed pretty sure of yourself when you left." She winced. "I know, and I was wrong." Silence stretched between us. For the first time, she was the one scrambling to keep the conversation going. At first, it was exciting. I felt free, but that feeling didn't last. The guys I thought were interested in me, they didn't care about me. Not really. I was just ... Hey. She trailed off, shaking her head. I guess I thought being single would feel different, that it would make me happy. I didn't say anything. I just let her talk. She exhaled sharply, finally looking at me. "I miss you," she admitted. "I miss us." I should have felt something in pity, maybe even nostalgia. But there was nothing, just the clear, undeniable truth that I had outgrown her. I shook my head. "You don't miss me, Emily. You miss the security. You miss knowing that someone would always be there for you, no matter how badly you treated them. But that's gone. You made sure of that." She reached for my hand, desperation creeping into her eyes. "Can't we just try again? Start over?" Pulled my hand away. "No," I said simply. Her face crumpled. For the first time, she realized that I wasn't hers to fall back on, that the safety net she had counted on was gone. I stood up, tossing a few bills on the table for my coffee. "You wanted freedom, Emily? You got it. Now live with it." And with that, I walked out, leaving her to sit in the mess she had created. She had thought the grass was greener on the other side. Turns out, it was just an illusion. Walking away from that cafe felt like shedding the last remnants of a burden I hadn't realized I was still carrying. Emily had made her choices, and now she had to live with them. But something told me that this wasn't the last time I'd hear from her, and I was right. Over the next few weeks, the texts started rolling in. First, they were casual, short messages that felt like she was testing the waters. "Hey, hope you're doing okay." Then they became more direct. "I miss talking to you." And then, as if she had finally accepted that subtlety wasn't going to work, she laid it all out. "I made a mistake. I shouldn't have left. I was stupid. Can we just talk?" Each message went unanswered, not because I was playing games, but because I had nothing left to say. But then she showed up. It was late, close to midnight, when I heard the knocking at my door. At first I ignored it, assuming it was a neighbor or someone who had the wrong house. But when it didn't stop, something told me to check, and there she was. Emily stood on my doorstep, her arms crossed against the cold night air, looking nothing like the confident woman who had walked out of our marriage months ago. Her makeup was smudged, her hair unkempt, and her expression was one of sheer desperation. "Please, just let me in," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to talk to you." I stared at her for a long moment. The old me, the man who once loved her, who would have done anything to fix things, might have hesitated. But I wasn't that man anymore. Still, against my better judgment, I stepped aside and let her in. She walked past me, looking around as if she expected things to be exactly as she left them, but they weren't. The house was different, cleaner, fresher, without the lingering presence of someone who had long since abandoned it, she noticed. "You've redecorated," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I nodded. "Yeah, it's my place now." That seemed to hit her harder than anything else. She swallowed hard and turned to face me. "I don't know where to start," she admitted. I was stupid. I thought I needed to be free, but all I did was ruin everything." I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. "Now that you've realized that, what do you expect me to do? Forget everything and take you back?" Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't expect anything, I just... She exhaled sharply, struggling to find the right words. "I thought I was doing what was best for me, but nothing turned out the way I expected. The guys I thought were interested in me, they never cared. The freedom I thought I needed, it was lonely. And every time something went wrong, I kept thinking about you, about us." I studied her, trying to find any trace of the woman I had once loved, but all I saw was someone who had gambled everything and lost. "You didn't think about me when you left," I pointed out. "You didn't think about us when you decided to find yourself. You were so sure that I'd just be here waiting." She shook her head furiously. "No, I was selfish. I thought I had all the time in the world." Her voice broke. "I thought I was making the right choice, and I was wrong." Silence filled the room. I could see the weight of her regrets pressing down on her, but that wasn't my burden to carry anymore. "I'm not the same person you left," I told her. "I spent too long picking up the pieces after you walked away. And now that I've finally moved on, you expect me to drop everything and go back?" Her lips parted, but she didn't say anything because she knew. She knew there was no going back. A single tear rolled down her cheek. "I just wish I could undo it." I exhaled slowly, shaking my head. "Some mistakes can't be undone, Emily." For a moment, she just stood there, trembling, as if she had finally processed the full weight of what she had lost. And then, with nothing left to say, she turned and walked to the door. Do-do-do-do-do. She hesitated just for a second, as if hoping I would stop her, but I didn't. And then she was gone for good. I should have felt relief that night, maybe even satisfaction. I had finally gotten what most people in my situation only dreamed about: an unfaithful, selfish ex realizing they had made the biggest mistake of their life. And yet as I stood there in the silence of my home, staring at the spot where Emily had been standing just moments ago, all I felt was nothing. That was what surprised me the most. No anger, no sadness, no triumph, just an emptiness where she used to be. Maybe that was the true sign of moving on, not feeling anything at all. The next few days were quiet, almost unnervingly so. I had expected Emily to try again, to send more texts, to show up at my door a second time. But she didn't. Maybe she finally understood that some doors once closed never open again. I should have known better. It was a week later when the first crack in my peace appeared. I had just gotten back from work, kicked off my shoes, and grabbed a beer from the fridge when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen, expecting another work email, or maybe a message from Sophie. But instead, I saw a number I hadn't thought about in years. Emily's sister, Rachel. Now, Rachel and I had never been particularly close. Emily by a few years, and while we got along fine during family gatherings, we never had much to talk about. So for her to be calling me out of nowhere, that was a red flag. I let it ring a few times before answering. Hello? Hey, I know this is weird, Rachel started, her voice hesitant. But have you talked to Emily lately? I frowned. Not since. She showed up at my house last week. Why? Rachel sighed, and I could hear the discomfort in her voice. She's not doing great. I stayed silent, waiting. She called me last night, Rachel continued, drunk, crying, saying she ruined her life, that she didn't know how to fix it. She kept talking about you, about how she thought she could just come back and everything would be fine, but now she realizes she messed up too badly. And then Rachel hesitated. She mentioned that guy she was with, the one she left you for. That got my attention. What about him? Apparently he dumped her a while ago. I don't know the details, but it wasn't pretty. I think she thought she had more options than she actually did. I let out a slow breath. Rachel, I don't know what. You expect me to do? She made her choices. She wanted freedom, and she got it. I know, Rachel admitted. I'm not saying you owe her anything, but she's really bad right now. I just thought you should know. I rubbed a hand over my face. This wasn't my problem anymore. It couldn't be. But still, something about the whole thing nagged at me. She tried to contact me again? I asked. Rachel hesitated. Not directly, but she did mention she was thinking about going to your work. She said she needed to talk to you face to face. I exhaled sharply. Jesus. Look, I know she's screwed. Up, Rachel said quickly. And I know you don't want to deal with her anymore. I just wanted to give you a heads up, thanks, I muttered. I appreciate it. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time staring at my phone. Emily was unraveling, and deep down, I knew this wasn't over yet. It was 2 days later when she actually showed up. I was leaving work, heading toward my car in the dimly lit parking lot, when I heard someone call my name. I turned, and there she was. Emily stood a few feet away, looking almost unrecognizable. She had lost weight. Her once perfectly maintained hair was a mess. Her makeup was smudged like she had been crying. She looked like someone who had been through hell, and based on what Rachel had told me, she probably had. I know you don't. Want to see me? She started, her voice barely above a whisper. But please, just let me talk. I sighed, glancing around. The last thing I wanted was a scene. 5 minutes, I said. That's all you get. She nodded quickly, like she was afraid. I'd changed my mind. I don't even know where to start, she admitted. I just ... I've ruined everything. I didn't respond. I just let her speak. I thought leaving was the right choice, she continued. I convinced myself that I needed to find myself, that I was missing out on something. But all I did was lose. The best thing I ever had. She took a shaky breath. I was stupid. I thought I had options. I thought men would want me the way you did, but they didn't. They only wanted one thing, and once they got it, they left. And then when I realized what I had done, it was too late. She looked up at me, her eyes pleading. I know I don't deserve it, but I just need to know, is there any part of you that could ever forgive me? I studied her for a long moment. This was the woman I had once loved, the woman I had built a life with. The woman who had walked away without looking back, thinking she was upgrading, thinking she had all the time in the world to play with my heart and return when she pleased. And now she was standing here begging for forgiveness. But the thing was, I didn't know her. I took a deep breath. Emily. I moved on. Tears welled up in her eyes. But we, ... I shook my head. There is no we. Not anymore. You made your choice, and I made mine. She let out a soft sob, covering her face with her hands. I just wish I could take it all back. But you can't, I said simply, and neither can I. Turned, unlocking my car. Goodbye, Emily. And just like that, I got in and drove away, leaving her behind for the last time. She had wanted freedom. Now she had to live with it. I thought that was the end of it. I thought watching Emily stand there in that parking lot, broken and regretful, would be the final chapter in a story that should have ended months ago. But people like her, they don't just let go when they realize what they've lost. For the next few weeks, I could feel the weight of her presence lurking just beyond my reach. She didn't text me directly anymore, but she found other ways to remind me she was still there. A coincidental run-in at the grocery store where she barely managed to meet my eyes. A mutual friend mentioning how she had asked about me in passing. Even Rachel sent me another text letting me know that Emily had been having a hard time. I didn't respond. It wasn't my problem anymore. But then, one night, it escalated. I had just gotten home from dinner with Sophie when I noticed something strange. A car parked a little too far down the street. Its headlights off, but the engine's still running. I wouldn't have thought anything of it except that it wasn't the first time I'd noticed it that week. Cold feeling settled in my gut. I didn't want to believe it, but I already knew. I stood by my front door, pretending to fumble with my keys, my back to the street. Then, in one quick motion, I spun around. The moment I did, the car's headlights snapped on, and it sped off down the road. I let out a slow breath. Emily, she was watching me. That was the moment I realized she wasn't just regretting her decisions. She was obsessed. I locked my door that night with a deeper sense of finality than ever before. This wasn't just a mistake she was trying to fix. This was something else entirely. And that was when I knew she wasn't done trying to get me back, and she was about to cross a line she could never undo. It happened 3 days later. I just finished a late shift at work when I got a call from an unknown number. Normally I wouldn't answer, but something told me to pick up. The voice on the other end was Rachel's. She sounded panicked, her words rushed and frantic. "It's Emily," she gasped. "She's in the hospital." I froze. "What happened?" Rachel let out a shaky breath. She drank too much, took something. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but she kept saying your name. When they brought her in, I closed my eyes. This was exactly what I had feared. Which hospital? I asked even as I said the words. I knew going there was a mistake, but some twisted sense of obligation still lingered. Despite everything, I wasn't a heartless person. I needed to see for myself what was happening. I needed to make sure she wasn't playing some kind of manipulative game. When I arrived, Rachel was already in the waiting area, pacing, looked up at me, relief flashing in her eyes. "She's stable, but ... She sighed, rubbing her face. "She's not okay. The doctor said she was talking about you the whole time, about how she ruined everything, how she lost the only person who ever really loved her." I clenched my jaw. "That's not my responsibility anymore, Rachel. I know," she admitted. I thought you should know." I glanced toward the hallway leading to the hospital rooms, and that's when Emily appeared. She was in a hospital gown, her hair a mess, her face pale and hollowed out by whatever storm had been raging inside her. The moment she saw me, she broke. Tears welled in her eyes, her hand shaking. "You came." I took a slow breath. Rachel called me. Emily swallowed hard. "I wasn't trying to hurt myself," she insisted. I was alone, and I kept thinking about everything, and I drank too much. I didn't respond because I wasn't sure I believed her. She took a shaky step closer. "I don't know how to fix this," she whispered. "I don't know how to go back." I met her eyes, steady and calm. "You can't go back, Emily. There's no fixing this. You made your choice." She sobbed, covering her face. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she cried. I thought I had time, but I don't. And now I've lost you." For a moment I just stood there, watching the woman who had once been my whole world crumble in front of me. And that was when I knew with absolute certainty I didn't love her anymore. There was no pain, no longing, just the realization that I had finally completely let go. I turned to Rachel. "Take care of her." And without another word, I walked away. Emily had wanted freedom, and now she had it. That night, as I drove home from the hospital, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. For so long, Emily had been this weight in my life, first as my wife, then as my heartbreak, and finally as this lingering shadow. Always on the edges of my new life, refusing to fade. But tonight, as I left her standing there in that hospital, I knew deep in my bones that she was no longer a part of my story. I was free. That realization hit me harder than I expected. I had spent months, maybe even years, trapped in the wreckage of our marriage, replaying old memories, trying to figure out where I had gone wrong. But the truth was, it was never about me. Emily had destroyed everything we built because she believed there was something better out there, and when she realized she was wrong, it was too late. But that was her burden to bear. Mine was just to move forward. The next few months were a whirlwind. My career took off in ways I hadn't expected: promotions, new opportunities, even the chance to travel for work, something I had always put on hold during my marriage. I threw myself into it, not as a distraction, but because for the first time, in a long time, I was building something for me. And then there was Sophie. What had started as casual and easy slowly turned into something real. She never pushed, never demanded anything from me. She was just there, supportive, kind, patient. And before I even realized it, I wasn't just seeing someone anymore. I was in love. It was different from what I had with Emily. There was no fear, no second-guessing myself, no constant need to prove I was enough. With Sophie, I just was. And for the first time, that was enough. One evening, we were sitting on the balcony of my new apartment, one I had chosen without any trace of my past. Life, one that was entirely mine. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of gold and orange. She leaned against me, sipping her wine, her eyes sparkling with quiet happiness. "You ever think about what would have happened if she never left?" Sophie asked, not out of jealousy, but genuine curiosity. I thought about it, about the life I could have had, the one where I stayed in a marriage that suffocated me, where I wasted years trying to make someone happy who was never satisfied. And I smiled. I said, "I never would have found this." Sophie reached for my hand, squeezing it gently. "Then I guess I should thank her." I chuckled, shaking my head. "I already have, in my own way." She tilted her head. "Oh, and how's that?" Kissed her soft and slow. By living the life she threw away. I guess in the end, that was the real lesson. Emily had spent her life chasing illusions, believing that happiness was always somewhere else, just out of reach. But I had found mine, not in some fantasy, not in fleeting excitement, but in the simple, beautiful reality of moving forward,